Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Life is not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. It is perfectly true, as the philosophers say, that life must be understood backwards. But they forget the other proposition, that it must be lived forwards. One could construe the life of man as a great discourse in which the various people represent different parts of speech. The same might apply to states. Then anxiety stirs. He is tortured day and night with the thought that he might possibly be a father, that somewhere in the world there could be a created being who owed his life to him. He cannot share his secret with anyone, he does not even have any reliable knowledge of the fact. In order to learn true humility, I use this expression to describe the state of mind under discussion. It is good for a person to withdraw from the turmoil of the world. We see that Christ withdrew when the people wanted to proclaim him king, as well as when he had to walk the thorny path, for in life either the depressing or the elevating impression is too dominant for a true balance to come about. Here, of course, individuality is very decisive. It is perhaps the misfortune of my life that I am interested in far too much but not decisively in any one thing. All my interests are not subordinated in one but stand on an equal footing. The highest and most beautiful things in life are not to be heard about, nor read about, nor seen but, if one will, are to be lived. It is very important in life to know when your cue comes. Adversity draws men together and produces beauty and harmony in life's relationships, just as the cold of winter produces ice flowers on the window panes, which vanish with the warmth. Idleness, we are accustomed to say, is the root of all evil. To prevent this evil, work is recommended. Idleness as such is by no means the root of evil, on the contrary, it is truly divine life, if one is not bored. The present state of the world and the whole of life is diseased. If I were a doctor and were asked for my advice, I should reply, create silence. In my great melancholy, I loved life, for I love my melancholy. The only intelligent tactical response to life's horror is to laugh defiantly at it. Life has its own hidden forces which you can only discover by living. Do you not know that there comes midnight, the hour when everyone has to throw off his mask? Do you believe that life will always let itself be mocked? Do you think you can slip away a little before midnight to avoid this? The person who is going to preach ought to live in the Christian thoughts and ideas, they ought to be his daily life. If so, this is the view of Christianity, then you, too, will have eloquence enough and precisely that which is needed when you speak extemporaneously without specific preparation. However, it is fallacious eloquence if someone, without otherwise occupying himself with, without living in these thoughts, once in a while sits down and laboriously collects such thoughts, perhaps in the field of literature, and then works them into a well-composed discourse, which is then committed to memory and delivered superbly, with respect both to voice and diction and gestures. I may live for 30 years, or perhaps 40, or maybe just one day, therefore I have resolved to use this day, or whatever I have to say in these 30 years or whatever I have to say this one day. I may have to live, I have resolved to use it in such a way that if not one day in my whole past life has been used well, this one by the help of God will be. JP 8-1A5 33-inch. I can understand myself in believing, although in addition I can in a relative misunderstanding comprehend the human aspect of this life, but comprehend faith or comprehend Christ, I cannot. But it never occurred to him to want to be a philosopher, or dedicate himself to speculation. He was still too fickle for that. True, he was not drawn now to one thing, and now to another. Thinking was and remained his passion, but he still lacked the self-discipline required for acquiring a deeper coherence. Both the significant and the insignificant attracted him equally as points of departure for his pursuits. The result was not of great consequence, only the movements of thought as such interested him. Sometimes he noticed that he reached the same conclusion from quite different starting points, but this did not in any deeper sense engage his attention. His delight was always just to be pressing on. Wherever he suspected a labyrinth, he had to find the way. Once he had started, nothing could bring him to a halt. If he found the going difficult and became tired of it before he ought, he would adopt a very simple remedy. He would shut himself up in his room, make everything as festive as possible, and then say loudly and clearly, "I will do it." He had learned from his father that one can do what one wills, and his father's life had not discredited this theory. Experiencing this had given Johannes indescribable pride, that there could be something one could not do when one willed it was unbearable to him. But his pride did not in the least indicate weakness of will, for when he had uttered these energetic words he was ready for anything. He then had a still higher goal, to penetrate the intricacies of the problem by force of will. This again was an adventure that inspired him. Indeed, his life was in this way always adventurous. He needed no woods and wanderings for his adventures, but only what he possessed, a little room with one window.